Good, man. I'm excited. It's good to meet you, man. Hey, Byron, are you able to hear pretty good?
All right, good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. It's your boy, Kevin Thornton. You have tuned into the Lotus Architect Show. Today is Monday, December 16th, 2019, and this is the show we've been waiting for 2 months. It's going to be our men's roundtable discussion. We're going to have the Generation X and the baby boomers having a conversation with the millennials. We're going to try to create a conversation to speak about things, about misconceptions, or lack of misconceptions we might have towards each other. So get ready. If you have questions, please call in or put them in our Facebook, and we'll ask the questions for you. With that being said, I want to turn it over to my co-host, Ms. Lotus Riche.
Hey, Kevin, it's good to be here. Hello to all our guests. We're so happy to have you here. Our word of the day is tenacity. When you think things are going wrong, things look wrong, and things just simply are wrong, you still have to show tenacity. So that's our word today, and we're not going to prolong you with the word of the day because I think you got it. And our guys right here on the panel is going to share some things with you about tenacity and a plethora of other things. So welcome to the show. Please make sure you text in or you can call in on 470-251-4647 with all your hard questions for our young and younger gentlemen.
So I'm going to start with my left. So get the microphone to the very end and tell everybody who you are, what you do, and pass it on to the next person.
My name is Remy Sante.
Start from here? All right, we're going to start with Mr. Sean.
What's the question?
Tell everybody who you are, what you do.
All right, my name is Sean Banks, and my background is in youth development and personal development. So I travel around the country, different places around the world, showing people different ways to better themselves. My focus is on youth development, and they should believe that youth can do anything that they really believe in doing.
All right, Bruce.
My name is Bruce Brooks, and I work in TV and film production as a producer, cameraman, audio, writer, editor, and that's kind of what I do, the media, the marketing.
And he is also going to be the producer of a documentary. Tell everybody what that's about, please, sir.
Oh, my documentary, actually it's my second documentary. The first one was about the Tuskegee experiment. And this one is called, right now it's called Blood and Loathing, and it's about the disconnect between Africans around the world. So African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, Africans from Africa, Africans from Europe. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between African Americans and African Americans, and we want to try to do things with each other to grow each other, but there's some subliminal messages in our mind that we just can't really get past. And it's kind of like an alcoholic. Until you realize it's a problem and admit it's a problem, you don't know to search for the answers. And there's a reason. It's not your fault you don't do the things that you need to do. But basically in America we have been labor, maintenance, and entertainment, and consumers. Those are our 4 roles. And maintenance, I'll say maintenance, even those people who have good jobs, unless it's your company, you're still maintenance. You're maintaining somebody else's wealth. And so until we decide that we're going to connect with one another, we will always be in the financial situation that we're in the social situation, and we really have to dig deep and find out who we are so that we can connect with one another. Because literally we are feeding the mule that kicks us. As long as we continue to be consumers, we buy the goods, who then they take the money to make sure we never get ahead.
There you go. Okay.
Hi, I'm Anthony Page. I'm an Atlanta-based filmmaker, producer, mostly do a little bit of directing, work in the area of film, television, and film. Georgia State University graduate, working on several projects right now. I'm shooting a TV pilot in January that I'm pretty excited about. So we'll hear more about that later.
My name is Isaiah Rivera. I am currently a chef. I just graduated in the art. My name is Isaiah Rivera, and I am currently a chef. I just graduated from the Art Institute of Atlanta, and I've been in culinary for about 3 years.
Hello, my name is Alfred Brown. I am a graduate of Georgia State as well with a degree in finance and education. Just recently graduated from the Art Institute, my degree in culinary. Currently right now just working in culinary, but seriously considering going back to the accounting world. So.
Awesome.
Okay.
How y'all doing? My name is Remy Sante. I'm a local chef, native from New York. Moved down here about 5 years ago. Trying to build my own brand and get myself to new heights.
All right. And on Zoom we have Mr. Byron.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
My name is Byron Burnside. I'm founder and CEO of GBE, Greatness Beyond Everything. I'm a graduate of Central State University with a double major in business management and also economics. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Matthew, can you tell everybody who you are and what you do? Did he freeze it again?
I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll get back to him. So let's get started with the first question.
Okay, fantastic. First question. Let's get it right here. Let me go down. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. The first question I have for all of you is, are millennials too emotional, or are the elders not emotionally intelligent? And I will say, I'll pose that question to you.
To me?
Yes.
Well, actually, I think there's a little of both. I think that I think my generation worked so hard to be so hard that, you know, to tell somebody, you know, you really care about them. You know, we were the generation that, you know, you better not cry.
Yes.
So, you know, to tell somebody my generation that they cried, you know, people my age would just like almost beat you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like,
yes.
So we weren't given license to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people from my generation will look at the millennials as though, you know, they're the line that I hear is they're soft, they're weak.
Right.
But on the flip side, I do have to say, as someone who works a lot with people, one of the things that we see, because we were the you know, whatever it took generation. Mm-hmm. There was nobody to give us a hug. Mm-hmm. When we get pushback, it's kind of like, and what I mean is, what the very popular saying is, millennials can't take criticism. And I think what millennials, because I've talked to both sides, what I think millennials take that as is we're just being that hard group of people. But really what we want to do is give you everything that we have. Mm-hmm. And when you don't take it, it's just kind of like if you gave somebody a sandwich and that's your last sandwich and they handed it back to you, you'd be hurt. Yes. And that's how my generation, baby boomers, kind of feel. You keep giving us back the sandwich we keep trying to give to you. And they take it personal. Because again, because they weren't allowed to feel, they really do feel. And it hurts. So I'm not emotional.
Can I chime in real quick? So I'm not a baby boomer, but I'm right kind of under you. And I do agree with you. We were taught not to feel at all. And so then therefore, we don't show no kind of emotions. We don't tell nobody that we care, all that kind of stuff. So when you
did.
Huh?
You did.
I didn't.
I came from a different family. We loved all the time. That's why we had this
We
conversation.
don't do all that. No, my family, we didn't do all that. We don't talk about I love you, kumbaya. That's not what we do. So when I started to interact more with millennials, it was a teachable lesson for me because they are more emotional. I say more emotionally intelligent. I don't look at it as a bad thing. I just look at it that they were taught to be more in tune with their emotions that I was not taught to do. You know, we were taught that it was not okay. So even women in our age range think it's a sign of weakness.
Very much.
You know, I had a conversation with some women. I went back to Detroit, and I was like, if your dude broke down and cried, how would you feel? And they said they would get another dude because they can't be bothered. That's our reality growing up. Like, that's our reality tonight dating. And so to come and see you guys, and you guys are more in tune with your emotions, y'all feelings is cool. And we had a conversation, because we all would like hang out and talk. And what we realized is that it's not that we never, I think you might have said you like 30, and your father said.
Oh yeah, my father, yeah, they're important. Hugged me, told me he loved me.
Right. You know, I think my father never done that, but when someone close to me finally said to me that they love me, that was of a male person, it was different for me because I don't do that, but I didn't show it, but I did appreciate it, you know what I'm saying? And it made me realize that I didn't think I was missing something until I actually received it, you know what I'm saying? So we want to hear from the millennials. Let's go to Byron. What's your thoughts, sir?
Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to be able to agree to disagree just a little bit. Just the simple fact that the gentleman stated that it's as if that you hand a millennial sandwich. The thing is that for some millennials, we are asking how to be able to hunt. So if we just giving us something and not to be able to work towards it, I guess we're going to be able to reject it because we want to be able to know what is the essence of to be able to hunt for our own food. There will come a time to the point where that you may not be there anymore to be able to give us anything. So the resource for us to be able to understand who we are as individuals, as millennials, is for us to be able to hunt and know who we are. And that's why some millennials are emotional due to the fact that they always come to contact and try to understand who they are. But we have Generation S or baby boomers, what have you, not all but some, have a way to be able to downgrade and water down individual mindset. And the millennials just sitting back and say, yeah, I'm refusing all offers. So we're going to find our way, we're going to pave our way through to be able to understand which route and what path we need to be able to go to.
Al?
I don't agree with that. Like, I think, I get the fact that you're trying to find your own way, but like, it's people on the outside looking in. And they're basically trying to stop you from making the major mistakes that they could foresee coming and happening. So in telling you, oh, I don't think that's the right decision, it's not that person trying to tell you how to live your life. It's just that I've been here, I've done this. Let me just share with you the knowledge that I know. Not trying to tell you how to live your life, but these are just tidbits of golden nuggets along your journey that I think would make it a lot smoother and a lot easier. So I think on both sides, it's a perception that's being perceived the wrong way. Like, this side is looking at it as, oh, you're trying to tell me what to do, whereas the other side is like, I'm really just here to try to help you and nurture you along the way. And I think that's where the clash is coming in at, and the confusion in that gray area, because that discussion is not being had. It's just an exchange of information on top of an issue that's not really being resolved, but just being hashed out for no reason at all.
Okay.
Well, and that's why we're having this discussion tonight, because as you said, it's not being discussed, it's not being talked about, and what it causes is a great divide among the millennials and among older people, or the baby boomers, if you will. And we don't need that great divide, because it's because of that great divide that we are disconnected. So that's what this show is really about, to get connected where there may be ambiguities, or maybe there may be a difference in the way we think. But guess what? We can all agree to disagree. And the big thing is that we are learning a lot more from millennials than a lot of people want to really give millennials credit for. And that's what we're here today. And also the baby boomers, pardon me. We're learning a lot more from the baby boomers than we give them credit for. So I want to say that you made a statement earlier about millennials maybe, you talked about emotion, but you touched on one of my questions. So I'm going to go to the question that someone sent in. I want to have that up first before we go any further. Yep. Sure.
Remy, can you chime in on the whole emotion question?
I guess when it comes to the whole emotional thing, I see both sides, because at the end of the day, I think I'm the millennial that lands on that cusp of the baby boomer and the millennial generation. So I understand what it is to be hard and not be emotional, right? And not show it and just ride it through and do what you got to do and almost like survive in a sense, right? At the end of the day, we don't see eye to eye at times, but I feel like if we communicate more, if we talk to each other more in regards to our feelings, in regards to our views when it comes to certain things that we do or how we perceive things as generations go on, if we have more that communication, then we'd understand each other a lot more. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes to like even like fatherhood or parenthood, motherhood, like sometimes more times than not, those conversations don't happen. So us not having those conversations with our children, you know, at the end of the day, of course you're gonna have that disconnect, because you're never gonna understand what's going through their head, what they go through on a daily basis. You know what I'm saying? So we have to. It has to be more of a connection, and I think I've had that connection over this past year and a half with Mr. Kevin over here. So I know what it's like when I talk about certain things nowadays. You know.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So for the millennials, how much does it play a part of being emotional if the father is not present? And we know for the millennials, a lot of the fathers are not present. So how does that affect you guys when it comes down to emotional, being emotional, and also in your journey as being men? Isaiah, you go first.
So, without having a father in your life growing up, it is pretty tough. You look to other figures, other male figures for that role model. A lot of the time, people get trapped in like I would say bad role models, as opposed to the good ones, because as we was talking about earlier, the good ones would we can't find that area, that clean area. You know, it's always that gray space, like somebody's trying to tell me how to live my life, let me do what I want to do. So
I apologize.
With everybody, with all the millennials, us growing up and everything, a lot of us depended on our moms to be strong, and that's who I depended on. And with me depending on my mom, it was just like me and my mom, we would have talks. It'll be like, hey dad, even though I'm talking to my mom, and she would be like, hey son, you know. But that's just like the females. I feel like they are the backbones with us growing up as millennials. She always told me and my brothers that even though we don't have that strong father figure, everybody was placed in our lives for a reason. It was probably not his turn to stay there, you know. It was what she say. He's here for a season, not lifetime or something like that. I can't remember how the quote goes, but yeah, that's
Okay. Byron, what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts about it is, me, I can just talk about my own experience by me being in a position of being raised by my grandmother and my two aunties. I didn't have a father in my life or what have you. So for me, it creates some type of identity crisis, because now you're being taught, society is painting a picture that men need to be able to have their exterior to be able to be hard, not to show emotion. And for men like myself, you have to try to find your way in today's society or what a man is, because you didn't have a father in your life to be able to show you the regard to what a man should be, what a man should do. You have a woman that's in that position teaching myself what a man is or what have you. And then when you get older in your life, you have identity crisis. That's when depression. That's when anxiety, lack of encouragement to be able to come in your life, and you don't know what to be able to do with yourself, because now you're trying to find your way through, and you never had a father to be able to understand who you are. At the end of the day, the size of my heart is the shape of my father that has not been in my life, period, none whatsoever. But I can be able to still look back on my past and be able to understand that the women that in my life to be able to show me for who I am, that always always look at a person in their eye when you talk to them. Have a strong hand grip when you shake people's hand or what have you. These are concerns and issues that's being done within our society, that when we do knock on the door as a millennial, trying to be able to have an understanding of what a father is or what have you, we get the back of someone here of neglecting to be able to show us. And that's why you have the gangbangers, you have the drug dealers, you have the rappers, you have all the celebrities and everything that we tend to be able to look up to, because they give us an eye opener for us. Maybe this could happen. But when you have the neighbor right next door to you that refuses to be able to show you your way, and you see that person is not making the right decision, what should you do?
Wow.
Can I say something? Can you
Yes,
guys
sir.
Yes.
You know, I grew up without my father too. And like most black men, we have grown up without our fathers. And so I see kind of like this old David and Goliath kind of scenario, you know what I mean? Because when you get to a certain point, and really it's the black men, the black family, or just men in their families in general who don't grow up without their fathers, right, are now in a situation I see where, because they didn't have that example, they weren't able to see how things were to be done. They didn't see how, okay, this is how this man is gonna go to work, come home, he's gonna buy a house, number one, which is the first stone for wealth in the family. He's gonna go to work every day, he's gonna take care of his family, he's gonna servant lead his family, his wife. Not seeing those things, right, makes it even more difficult now when the man, okay, who was a boy, did not have that father in his life. It's now got to be the father. And so when you're talking about like the next generation or millennials and stuff like that, I see them, for me, as they're like 2 generations removed that have got, or 3 generations removed that have got to deal with this absenteeism. You understand what I'm saying? So now when they're dealing with this absenteeism, they're harder. But they're also, when they are dealing with the absenteeism, so that's why it's so important for me, for my daughters. I don't have a son right now. Hopefully maybe in the future I'll have a son, but for the black male, you know what I mean? It's so important. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation, is that we have to connect that black man to his son, whoever son he has, so that the next generation will begin to heal, and that the hearts of the fathers will be able now to be returned back to the children, back to the son. You know what I mean? So I come from a biblical point of view. If you look in Malachi, the last words was that the mandate was that the hearts of the fathers will be returned back to their children. So as we continue to go and to move and we talk about what it is to be from here, where we are here now as men, and then millennials, and how each generation is different. You know what I mean? It's that we continue to be there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As we're growing up without these fathers, we know what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
So now, as we're growing up, you know what I mean, and we're now men, that our families, our sons will know what it's like to have a father in the house. Our father must be in the house. That will change everything.
Love it.
So I'm seeing a lot of the gentlemen on the panel nod their heads. So I'm hearing people, or I'm seeing people nod your head. So Anthony, can you talk a little bit about why that is important to have the fathers in the house? And then after that, I want to take a question. We have a few people that's chimed in.
Well, kind of springboarding what he said and just kind of absorbing everything that's taking place. The first thing that I want to say is I think the idea of what manhood is expanding. I think we had one idea. I grew up where the man was supposed to be the provider. We go out and we bring home the bacon, that's it, and the women were kind of charged with the rearing and the community that was the family. But that idea has grown now. So, I do a lot of the things for my son, that my mother did for me. And my wife and I both bring in money into our household. So I think that idea of what manhood is expanding, and it has grown. And the internet is a big part of that. There's a greater exchange of ideas. Another piece, we're talking from a generational standpoint, but I think it's also a geographic standpoint, because having been in the military, having lived all over the country, I realize my brothers and sisters in the Northeast think about things differently than the East Coast or the South or even the West Coast. So it's also kind of that cultural background. Another layer on that is the family background. My father went to Vietnam, came back with PTSD. My parents divorced. I didn't see him but 3 times in my life, but I had uncles. There was a big community. My mother had 4 brothers, and they were that for me. I had a stepfather too. He was kind of hands off with my brother and me. But we had a broad perspective of what manhood was from their generation. It was work for them. These men, they got up and they worked, and your identity was tied into your work. You get up and go get it, and we didn't whine.
Okay.
Like, boy,
so
yeah, I know. Going on, and
let me ask a question. No, and this question is for you and to anyone else that wants to answer, because you hit on something. You said in your day and in your father's day, they got up and they went out, they worked. Their thought process was to take care of the family. So what do you say to the men, okay, that sit home and don't work, not because they're a stay-at-home dad, but because they won't get a job, and we have these women taking care of them? First, what do you say to the men? And then I want one of you guys to say something to the women.
Worse than the infidel. Worse than the infidel. A man who doesn't take care of his family is worse than the infidel. He shouldn't have children. Why have children if you can't take care of them? Why have a wife if you're not trying to love her through whatever issue she may be going through that you may call her sometimes, you know what I mean? But
and now
man must take care of his kids.
Right. And now remember, we're not talking about fathers that are trying and the mother is clashing and won't let you. That's not who we're talking about here. We're talking about the men that refuse to work and take care of their children, or are living with a woman and letting that woman take care of them while she's at work, he's with someone else. Okay, that's what we're talking about.
The deadbeat dad.
Well,
the deadbeat dad.
No, I wouldn't call it a deadbeat dad.
What would you call it?
Like that whole scenario was my demographic growing up. My dad went to Vietnam. He came back. He was a product of PTSD. He was married to my mother, who loved him more than life itself. So you have a marriage with a woman who's trying to support her husband and get him back to where he needs and wants to be.
Right.
But you have a man that has a substance abuse problem, that doesn't know anything different, that has now had a child with a woman that he loves, and he doesn't know what to do. Like, he really doesn't know what to do. So growing up in that environment, all I saw was this man that would be sweating, moaning on the couch all day. As I'm walking past him going to school, And my mother is working from like 2 to 11, 7 days a week to provide for the entire home. As that strong black woman, she never berated my dad. She never told me that he was a deadbeat. He was, you know, a piece of crap. She was just like, just know that as a man, these are the things that you're supposed to be doing.
And I want to say this, as a clinician who's worked with people who have substance use disorders, we're talking about a person with what we call a disease that has no, they can't totally control it without getting help. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. But then we're also talking about an era where, just like we stated before, he's not supposed to cry. He's supposed to be a man. He's supposed to be strong. We're not taking him to no doctor. All we can do is pray through this. We're not going to go to therapy. We can just pray him up. He's going to be okay. And none of that ever happened.
Right. So how do we help him?
That's my whole thing. It's an education piece. Like you use those things as trials and tribulations to
I think that's a
educate
different
people.
conversation. I think that's a different conversation. I think what we're talking about is the impact that it has on all of us. Right. We're not going to change that. It's going to happen. We're going to have, and I think what happened is, let's go back a little bit. I came from a generation, I'm sitting, you know, I hear this a lot. People grew up without a father. And that's kind of going back to my sandwich statement. I can't imagine, I literally cannot imagine, I had my grandfather who I was at his house every Saturday. He literally taught me, he said it figuratively, literally taught me how to hunt and shoot. He taught me how to go to the market and pick out, you know, the best meat, the best eggs, or whatever. He taught me how to drive. He taught me how to, you know, he planted seeds on. You got to buy a house when you get older. You got to handle this kind of finances. You don't buy stupid stuff. You buy this or whatever. And then his son came along, who was my father, who did the same thing for me. Sometimes I hated it, but it planted into me the things that I see when I see. Like when I do like youth motivation, I used to do it for corporations. I could literally tell the young men, especially African American, I could always point to raised in a female house, had a father, raised in a female. I could just tell because there's a male and a female energy in all of us. And if you don't have your father, and you know, I can't change it, but I can always tell because it's a certain type of energy. That I could tell when I went to college. I could tell the guys that had their father, and because we would all get to know each other. So until we get to the point where, you know, we you know, start, like my man called him infidel. I don't like it either, but we've got to figure out a way to put more of the male energy into our young men, because I was telling Sean, I don't want to. In my neighborhood, you know, we got were raised. My own was raised by a female, you know, and I can see it. It's just, you know, so it's huge. It's huge. It's pain. You know, I can see the pain in some of the faces as you're telling me a story. But I can't imagine not having my grandfather and my father in my formative years. I just can't.
And so I want to dovetail what he was saying a little bit too, because a big part of what black men face is we've been isolated. We were the criminals. We see these black men flashed all over the news, but we weren't the only one doing crimes, right? We were the super predators. We were the lusty ones. All the negative things, they put black men first. We were the bane of society, right? And they've been marketing that idea of who black men were for generations.
And that's huge. And
they've isolated us, right? So now we don't trust each other. Our women don't trust us. The white community don't trust us. So a lot of black men are alone trying to figure this thing out, right? Huge. And then they got this idea that, handle your own. You know, I can handle mine, right? Like, we're the only ones in the world who are not supposed to need anybody. That's false. But those are the false narratives that they put out there. It's okay to be in touch with the full spectrum of who you are as a man. It's okay to need. It's okay to cry. It doesn't make me less of a man because I cry. It doesn't make me less of a man that my wife might make more money than me at all. It's like, what's your idea of what a man is supposed to be? And because my father wasn't there, I'm having to discover that for myself and to teach to my son. You know, so basically I'm the architect of what my manhood is, period. It's like, and it's based on principles and values. It's like, okay, this is what I know works. This is what I know is good. This is what I'm going to teach you because that's what I want you to teach my grandkids.
So we had another question.
Almost, I think he wanted to say something. Did you want to say something, Remy?
I can't remember what I was
Okay.
going to say.
So we had another question right here. Please go ahead with your response, if you had a response to something earlier.
Byron.
Byron? Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, thank you. What was the question? Because I think everybody is.
It was a twofold question, but what happened was the primary key is that he brought it back to the real core of the problem. And the problem doesn't stem from the man being home and not working and hanging around. The problem stems from what is the man missing?
Yeah.
And is it okay that he's missing that? And how do we deal with that? How do we bring it to the forefront and really talk about it?
That's good. I think on my end, I think, like I said, I've talked to young people a couple of times or whatever, and they always say to me, that their father or their mentor or whatever, for men, it has not been required for men to be able to work as much as my grandfather used to be able to work, because now we live in a society that men that are grown by women, that is given everything that's given to them. So now when they get older in life to be able to do anything, they're worthless. They will sit on their couch and watch ESPN all day, all night, or what have you, with no regard, and allow the woman to be able to go out and be able to do whatever she needs to be able to do to be able to make sure that the food is on the table. Mm-hmm. At the same time, the requirement from the woman is not being just to the man. Even though that the man in his mind know what he should be doing, he's not going to be able to do it because everything has been given to him.
Right.
And it goes back to millennials being in the position, teach me how to hunt instead of giving me a sandwich.
And that begs the second part of that question. That begs the second part of that question, and we're going to get to that question. But before we do that, let's take some of our people. We got a lot of people chiming in. Yeah. And
We
there's a
got to
question.
get back to what he said.
Okay, let's go there. Hold on, let's go there first. And then our people that are chiming in, we see you. We see you, and that's why we having this round table, and I know it's juicy. We're going to take this, and then we're going to come to you, okay? Please, go ahead, Anthony.
Well, I mean, just kind of what he said. I mean, we continue to blame black men. We're not looking at. We were the ones that were hung in trees and had our wankers cut off. That wasn't too long ago. I mean, they got an exhibit down at the Auburn Avenue Research Library. They talked about, and they got markers all over the state of Georgia where men were hung. Yes. Some white woman would look at you like, "Oh, he looked at me, and I could get hung." Imagine the psyche and the psychology, how that may impact it. So now we're blaming. Oh, let me jump away from that because I'll get too emotional. This is what I see. I think these men have gotten smart. We decided, okay, we have to create our own. Yeah, some of them are doing illegal businesses, but I see a lot of them trying to start business. They're trying to figure out who am I, what am I good at, and how do I build a business around that. Mm-hmm. And it's hard because we don't have the support, but that's what I see. I see a lot of hustle. We're hard workers. You want to call us lazy? That's a lie. That is an absolute lie. It's in our core, especially our Southern brothers. You can forget it. Those are the ones who, that's how we survive. But again, society has put the black woman here, and now she's got a little bit more support in the broader society than we do, and then she's looking at us like, why don't you have what I got? Well, there's not as much support for me. Mm-hmm. So I got to work harder just to catch up with you. Then you think I'm not on your level, I'm not equally yoked, and to me that's all a lie. I think we got to. Just keep things in proper perspective. Because and the final thing I want to say, these brothers are hurting. We've had to bottle up all this stuff for years. People talking about us, laughing at us, isolating. We don't have that hand when we need it, right? We're the threats in society. I got 7 degrees. I get on the elevator, the woman will pull her purse away. I'm walking down the street at night. I'm a little guy. I'm walking down the street at night, and I can see people hesitate because they see a black man coming. What do they think that I am? So imagine going in that, I'm trying to get a contract. Imagine going in that, and I'm trying to get a loan. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. I have to fight through all of that just to get to the skills and the raw essence of who I am and what I want to do in my business. Mm-hmm.
So, all right.
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes down to it, we're still not understanding as a people, like we gotta forget about the past. Because the past is always gonna be the past. It's gonna stay the same. You know what I mean? We have to come together and talk, like legit have conversations. We don't have conversation enough at all. Like at all. I'm 33 years old. I had my father in my life, not in the house. But I never had conversations that I was supposed to have, quote unquote, supposed to have, right? What I do now, as still a young man and still an old head, as some would call me, is I have these conversations. This gentleman right here, every day at work, he can tell you. This gentleman right here, he's older than me. We have conversations. Like, I have conversations with people that are strangers, basically. Like, I've just met, or I met 10 years ago, that I didn't know since I was born, that really didn't make me, didn't breed me, right? My mom worked 2-3 jobs my whole life, still does to this day. They say that a young boy cannot be raised by a woman. That's false. Young men can be raised by women, but we can't be taught how to be a quote-unquote man by a woman, right? But at the same time, what is the perception of a man? Everybody has a different perception of a man.
And let me say this, for those of you that are listening, because I'm sure we're going to have a lot of people chiming in, because I'm hearing some people say, well, when men are raised by women, you see this energy, as you stated, you see this energy, and, you know, some people may say, what energy are you talking about? Is it not good? I can say this. Many, many men have been raised by single women because the fathers have vacated their space for whatever reason. And they are successful men. But like you said earlier, there's a hole in your heart. There's a huge hole. There's a space that has to be filled. And unless another man can help validate that in you as a man, that space may never be filled. So to all the women and all the men that are out there watching, remember, we're not saying that women can't raise male children. We're not saying that. But what we are saying is that men need to remember, you've got to step up. You can't say, oh, you was raised by a woman and you're not good enough, or whatever you say. You got to step up and take ownership, because our young African American men and Caucasian and Latinos, these men still need their fathers and father figures in their lives. And like you said earlier, so powerfully put, it leaves a gaping hole. So what do we do about that?
Well, like you were saying, that what conversations should we have with that black woman? I think that's one of the conversations that should be had. Like, what positive black role models in your life do you have, can you present to your son, that are going to be, you know, good for him? He doesn't have to be the total package. He could be a guy that's just a really good guy that does a lot of volunteering. Okay, can you teach my son the humility in actually volunteering, what it actually means to do that, and why he should do those things? Not necessarily saying that that's something that he's going to do, but it's something good to expose him to.
Yes.
Like, I think as a black mother who's raising a black man, that's one thing that she should do. She should also find some type of grounding in some type of faith. I just believe that. Like, I believe that regardless of what the belief is, some type of faith should be instilled in that man. Let it be by her, by that institution, by someone that she knows. Those are just key things that I think that she should be doing and having those conversations with. Because I think the problem is that we look for that one person for him to follow and model and be like, that's not how that works.
No.
Everyone is not perfect. Like, everyone has something to offer and to give up. So that's what you should be seeking for. You should be looking for that guy that has those qualities that you want instilled in your son, and he should be kind of modeling that. But I mean, with that, you shouldn't just be like picking up everybody, introducing them. Of course, you should do your own screening or whatever, but I think that is the start of the conversation that should be had with the black.
And it's unequivocal that it takes a village.
I want to say something to you, but I want to say something too. I can hear a lot of hurt.
Yes. Exactly.
In the room, you can tell there's a lot of people, even older, that have had their fathers in their life, how that affected them. And so the problem is a lot of times too is these people, like Byron said, they have holes in their hearts, and they would like to get another person to be that figure for them, but they're too scared to ask for that because they are being rejected.
Exactly.
Well, that and the emotional part of it too is when I offer myself up and ask for help, I'm looking soft, and I look like I am not being the man that I'm supposed to be because I'm asking somebody for something. Doesn't even have to necessarily be help. I'm sorry, it doesn't even necessarily have to be help. It's just looking for something.
And that's why I wanted to pass the ball to Isaiah. As a millennial, Isaiah, I'm confident, probably sees this question a multitude of times before you. So as a millennial, what would you say to that?
Well, me, for millennials, I would say that it is hard for us growing up, and without fathers, it's hard. But our mother would bring in, that's gonna make it sound real bad. So my mom got married 3 times, and she says everybody that she married he enrolled something in us. My first father, my biological father, he enrolled life into me, and he showed me what I don't want to be to my kids. You know? The next person, he showed me that I'm supposed to work, and be a hard worker, and if you like to do something, do that.
Right.
And her husband now, my stepfather now, he showed me religion, and through religion, I'm becoming a better person for myself because prayer brought me a lot of peace. But if I'm looking for something in somebody, I have a lot of pride, so it's hard for me asking, hey, can you teach me to do this? Hey, I need help on this. And I'm through these two, both of these two are my mentors, and they are teaching me how to actually open up more and become a better version of me. For people that are out there, like I would say in the streets, they look to their what they call their OGs, originals, like the baby boomers, and they look to them. And if that's the hardest person around, that's who they want to be like, For me, I just try to be myself. I try to be the best person that I can be. Is what my mom always tells me.
So it is unequivocal that it indeed takes a village to raise any child. And my question to everybody out there and to the guys on this panel today, what part in the village are you playing? So with that being said, Sean?
What I'm looking to do, or what I'm doing as far as a village, is the development piece. So we have a youth development camp called Camp Warrior King, which is all about inspiring youth and getting them exposure to things they normally wouldn't experience during the year. Things like hunting. We take them on trips. So we're talking, whitewater rafting, teaching kids how to fish, teaching them how to sew. They've been able to make like primitive spears, and we have cheerleading for girls and fashion shows, and we do You Can Have It All Youth Conference, which is all about motivating kids, and so that has really taken off, getting kids to believe in themselves. And we have a couple other projects that we're working on, which will be able to create more of a reach for young kids, because it's really all about them being able to be motivated on a regular basis. And the reality is that some of them don't have fathers. But then, the other thing that I think that a lot of times we don't think about, especially with millennials, is that, it's a couple things that I keep in mind, and we really got to talk about in this conversation, is a couple things. You have some kids that don't have mothers, even though their mothers may be at home. They don't have mothers, and all they have is a father. Because mom is gone, or she's, or whatever. But then you also have a thing where there's been a lot of conversation about a very traditional family structure. And we're in 2020, and the traditional family structure is not what it used to be 20 years ago on the norm. So you have same-sex homes, which for a lot of traditional people is concerning. But the thing, and I say that because I'm talking about development and what I see with young adults and young kids coming to the program. And the thing is that sometimes you'll see, and it's part of a conversation we can have, you'll see a mother that has a daughter and she might have another woman in her life. And so you know that wasn't originally how it was, but that man is not there. But there's somebody that came in that's taking care of that kid. But we shun that and say that that's bad, but that dad is gone. Or, for example, you'll have, that I experience, I have certain programs that teach self-defense to women and children, right? And so I have white same-sex couples that are raising black children. And so some people look at it and be like, man, what's that? But the thing is that black people ain't fostering no kids. Exactly. But they're fostering the kid, taking care of the little girl. So the thing is what would her life have been like had they not stepped in and been like, nah, we're going to scoop this girl up. So what that says is that every white person is not bad. Number one, because the reality is that with a lot of things that we've done as black people in this culture, we would not be where we are if it weren't for the help of certain white individuals to help those things happen. Every white person is not bad. Every black person is not good. So part of with development and what we're doing, especially in 2020, is that there has to be a mindset if we're going to connect, or if you're going to connect with millennials. Because if you come into a millennial group and be like, hey, what y'all doing is bad, y'all need to do it how we used to do it, no, nobody's going to listen to you. Because the thing that's happening is what we thought was the thing that was supposed to happen, what we're supposed to do, is not what it is. For example, and we can go ahead and get this conversation started. We go to church, and we enjoy going to church. But we go to church, and there's this big difference, let me say before I say what I'm going to say, between following the word of God and the church, as far as the preachers in the church that are telling us what we're doing wrong every single day, and how we're supposed to live based on these rules every single day, which the word was not designed for us to have to live based on those words, but under grace. And so then what we find is that some of these preachers aren't doing it themselves. So then you find now that millennials are leaving the church, not because they don't believe in God, but because they're tired of following people that are beating them over the head, telling that they're doing everything wrong, telling them everything that, okay, well, all right, this person is gay. All right, well, so now it's bad that they're gay. It wasn't bad before, or it was bad before they found out that they had bread. Then they had bread. It's like, oh, well, now come in. So it's like the issue that we're seeing, especially with young adults and with bringing in these kids, is that it's very, it's become very convoluted, very confusing. And so, and I say this because I want to stay on the connection of millennials and what's happening with us and why such an issue is that it's kind of hard to follow some of the baby boomers that are not practicing what they're preaching. Y'all want us to do what y'all are doing, but we don't see y'all doing it.
You just got a couple folks. Dr. Sandra Brooks said,
Sure.
Now the conversation is getting real. You have
That's why we're here.
Larry out of Charlotte said that why can't men just be honest with themselves and help one another?
Well, the reason we can't be honest is because we're following rules that were never meant for us. We were given rules as Americans that we never benefited as African Americans. So we're following a script that was given to us, but we never got benefit of. Like, you go to school, you keep it. Okay, I'm speaking as a boomer. All right, so you go to school, you keep your nose clean, you don't go to jail, you do all the right stuff, and you still end up almost making no money.
Right. Because like he said, his mom is working 2 jobs, right?
Still. Right. Right. So, but as a black man, so we have it's a different energy. It's a different energy. And so, as a man, when we were taught, you're pretty much a failure when you couldn't provide for yourself.
Yes.
Women, you have some expectations, but you don't have that cloud of you're a failure when you can't take care of yourself. You have needs and all of that. But as a black man, you are a failure. So when America, and pretty much around the globe, because this is not an American thing, the more you travel outside the country, you'll see that they're in the same situation in London, they're in the same situation in the Caribbean, everywhere. So they gave us rules, but then we didn't get the benefit. So we did this, but then you loaned to everybody but us. You gave jobs to everybody but us. You gave us media that told us the thing to do was being a thug, and so now you're surprised you want to be a thug, but that coincided with the prison industry. So everybody made money off of that except us.
Of course.
So we got given a script, and Sean knows in my garage we smoke cigars and have this conversation all the time. And see, I have friends that actually, they bought into the system. They still buy in the system. We've come a long way. No, we haven't come a long way. We've got the same amount of home ownership that we had in 1968. We have the same amount of income. The only thing that we came a long way is we have shinier things than our parents.
So I just want to say this because I saw your hand shaking. I saw your hand shaking when you said that, and this. I want to make this point because this is real. Our men deal with this day in and day out, the unlevel playing field. And you can work until you're blue in the face, but the playing field will never be level on the playing field that we've been told that we have to play in. And then we get blamed for, so now we take that energy back to our house. And see, this is why I see a lot of brothers just can't deal. Because you take that energy of failure back to your house. You take it to your wife. You take it to your girlfriend. You take it to your kids. So that thing that I just shared with that my father and my grandfather gave me, they can't give that to somebody and all you feel is failure and the world kicking you behind.
And see, and let me dovetail on that perception. Because you get in trouble, these big celebrities get in trouble, we want a white lawyer. When I got big money, I want a white financial advisor. You see what I mean? It's like the perception that that a black person may not be as good as that white counterpart. I mean, across the board. So you look and we know that's a lie. We know that's a lie, but still, because one of my friends is an attorney, and he was talking about the Ray Lewis case. He got to interview Ray Lewis, and he almost got that opportunity, but Ray ended up going with a white lawyer, almost to say, "I don't trust you to get me out of this situation." And perhaps he was smarter than the lawyer he got. I mean, he ended up having a positive result, but how many times does that show up in an HR room? How many times does that show up in a
Well, a lot of smart white men go to Willie Gary, which is one of the coldest lawyers in the nation,
right?
And that is a black man,
right?
I just had to put that out there because not all of them do. Yeah.
So Kevin.
So I want to introduce our other panelists. My roundtable discussion would not be complete without this brother. From day one, from I started 3 years ago, my very first roundtable discussion, he's been in it. Every time I have one, he's in it, and so it wouldn't be complete without him having to be here today. So I want you to be listening. What's your thoughts? First of all, Larry Hodges, first of all, everybody. And tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Larry Hodges. I am a comprehensive logistics consultant. Also do radio and a number of different things. However, the honor is due to you. Thank you for having me here, Kevin. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. I was a little late to the party. I know that we're talking about millennials, but so that I can weigh in properly, give me, where are we touching right now?
All over.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
I'll pick up breadcrumb trail. Swap.
Okay. One thing I definitely will agree with perspective to black men. There was a Biggie song. I know everybody in here is old enough to have heard some Biggie. Long kiss goodnight. Make ends, they hate you. Be broke, girls won't date you. Right? And so it's really, you don't win either way. Because even if you succeed, your people have kind of this convoluted view of you. And then if you don't succeed, you know what I mean? It's extremely difficult.
But specifically with regards to, I think I heard something about the church earlier, and millennials leaving the church. We're in probably, it's hard to explain this properly, but we're in one of the hardest times, but also one of the best times, right? Because we're in a time of transition. We cannot do what we do, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do if it had been for what we're doing now, you know, in terms of internet, radio, and television and whatnot. So it's one of those things where as technology expands, there's a lot of poison out there, but we also got a little bit of reach, right? We can control the narrative a little bit. We're not like restricted to ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, right? And so, exactly. So, you know, for what it is that we're doing right now is a major conduit of information, right? But there are a lot of things changing, and we have been given a false narrative. But the good thing about the millennials is, as much as I get on millennials, I'm 37 years old. As much as I fight and get on millennials, they have the knowledge and the bravery to reject stuff that either we were just too ignorant to know to reject, or didn't have the courage to reject because it was too taboo. You know, at the table, or you know, at the dinner table or at the church, and so. We're in a very, very marvelous time if we can revise the narrative and come back and say, you know what, maybe daddy or granddaddy or uncle did pay the bills, but that didn't entitle him to having a girl down the street because he paid the bills. That's not okay anymore. You know, we're gonna throw out. It was never okay, but there's been a narrative of our life that we've adopted from cultures that weren't our culture, and then we see the blowback. We see women saying, well, you know, the grandma, great-grandma, you need to get your own, because of maybe what and then they push that so far to the extreme, and now that's why we have the what you're saying about you may have same-sex relationships or whatever. Some of that is not just out of an intrinsic desire to have them. Some of it is still centered from the ricochet and the blowback from not wanting to be captive to anybody because of their ability to financially take care of a household. So everybody has an opportunity now to come back to the table and look at this thing realistically and say, okay, well, we've got to find our own culture. We're finding it, and we can use a little bit of the rebellion with the millennial culture as a reflective mirror to reconstruct the way that we do things going forward.
I have something from Dr. Brooks. She said that that's an important point. They have an intestinal, thank you, Doc, that's what I was going to say. They have intestinal fortitude to ask the tough questions that we don't ask. We had a person on before, Miss Jennifer McNeil, and she wrote a book called Stripes, Strength, and Lipsticks, and she talks about intestinal fortitude. And you are 100% correct, because millennials do have the intestinal fortitude to stand up and say, you know what, I hear you, and I may even respect you, but I don't agree with you, and I'm willing to agree to disagree. And I think that's something that the millennials are bringing to the table that a lot of the baby boomers didn't bring to the table as much, because they were outcast if they brought that to the table.
And not to interrupt you, but to your point, 100%, no longer will "because I said so" works anymore.
Exactly.
That's not a good enough reason.
Do as I do, do as I say, not as I do.
Growing up, that's how it was with us. "Because I said so" was good enough, but that won't work with it.
Right.
It doesn't.
And I heard someone,
it's not that
the gentleman say, I'm sorry, the gentleman say when you said, you know, you paid the bills, but it didn't give you the right to go and have, you know, extracurricular activities with other women.
Affairs.
And I heard a few people chime in, it was never okay. You know, and right now in this day and age, even with disease running as rampant as it is, people are still feeling like I pay the cost to be the boss, so it gives me the right to go out and do whatever I need to do. And the thing is, it's happening on both levels. levels. Men and women are doing the same thing. So happy you made that point.
I believe.
Can I address something?
I believe it's not that millennials have the balls, I guess you could say, to ask nowadays. It's we have the heart to act upon things. So at the end of the day, we don't want to hear what anybody got to say because we feel like we have to go through it in order to understand what it is we have to do. And at the end of the day, like it's like what Sean was saying with the whole church thing, right? I remember the day that I left church because it was always told to me, God takes you how you are, right?
Right.
Every Sunday you go, you dress up, you got your shoes on, you got to have your hair brushed, you got to do this, you got to do that. There was one Sunday I had braids. I said, Mom, what are we doing today? Oh, we're going to church. Cool. I put my white tee, my jeans, and my kicks on. Put my do-rag on. I said, I'm ready. She looked at me and said, where you going? I said, I'm going to church, right? Like, we going to church. She was like, nah, you're not going like that. I said, well, you told me God takes me however I am, right?
Yes.
So I'm going just like this. So whenever you're ready, whenever you're done brushing your hair, I'll be ready in the car. I sat in that car. She came outside. She pulled up to church. Like, she was real hesitant, but she allowed me to go in. Now, I didn't go in with my do-rag on or nothing like that, but I went in, and I got looks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I'm Haitian, so that Caribbean background, bro, you cannot play with that. When you're at church, like, you have top hats on, you have all these things on. But I'm walking in sneakers, white T-shirt, and jeans on. And the first thing they call you is a vagabond. Vagabond is a thug in Creole, okay? Yes, I ran the streets, I gangbang, I did all that, but even at that time, I wasn't really into all that. I was still trying to find myself. Just because I'm dressed a certain type of way doesn't mean nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So at that point in time, I said, religion, I'm not with that. I couldn't do religion because not only that, you're also watching these priests on TV in Rolls Royces when T.T. Johnson can't even run around her 94 Accord, but yet, at the end of the day, they got Rolls Royces. But T.T. Johnson, every Sunday, want to come out and bring $500 for the church that keeps growing every year and becomes not this little box that it was, but a huge-ass stadium. Like, what are you doing? You know? At the end of the day, I get what this gentleman here is trying to say about you have to come in, you pay the bills, you know, you do this, you do that, you do this. Again, I think the perception of what a man is or what a man has to do in a household is split into so many different lights that we can't even sit there and say there's one way to be a man.
Right.
But we're not even accepting that
Right.
as a people. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, pro-black, but we hate on each other.
Right.
All the time. Every day. If I come through in a pair of Gucci sneakers, somebody else come in a pair of Vans, the person in the Gucci sneakers be like, oh, you're whack, you're lame, because you got Vans on. Why? Because I could only afford Vans, but you want to wear $500, $600 sneakers, and you can't even have a car, but I got a car to ride around in. I got a car to go to work. You riding the bus.
Dr. Brooks says that's real talk. She's chiming in from Augusta, Georgia. She's the author of the Purpose. Dr. Brooks, tell me. I'm sorry, that was so profound what you said. You know, and if you don't know this, folks out there that's listening, that's one of the great divides among us as people of color. Instead of loving on each other, we seek to tear down before we seek to understand.
Right.
And if we seek to understand and understand what unification is, we would do better. And I've traveled all over the world. I work for the Department of Defense. I've been to all different kind of countries. And what I've learned is that they mimic people of color. They love our kinky hair and our complexion and the way we dress and our swag and even our vernacular. But we are the ones that don't have the self-love for ourselves. You know, it's self-loathing. So that was a dynamic point that you made. So the question is, how do we teach ourselves to enhance the love for ourselves? Because really, it starts on the inside.
Conversation.
Right. And another thing I was going to
That's
say
why
is
we're here.
Conversation.
the unbroken chain, because each generation, you're going from the great generation, the boomers, Gen X, the millennials, they hit certain marks. They reach
Right.
certain milestones, and we cannot forget those lessons. So I have elders. I have elders who mentor me, and I'm mentoring about 17 people. We
Right.
need that. That they're teaching me something and been sowing something into me, and then I can pass that along.
Right.
But it also has to work the other way. We got to listen to the young people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because they figured some things out that make, you know, yeah, we did it one way, but it doesn't mean their way is wrong.
Right.
So it has to be like a continuous loop. We need each other, and we can't separate, because there's a lot of energy maybe on one side with the millennials and a lot of wisdom on the side with the, baby boomers. All of that is necessary. We got to think 360. It's not an either or.
So let me ask you this, Anthony.
Okay.
I've known you for a few years.
Yeah.
And some of you don't know this, but Anthony and I, we've had several debates together. We went to college together. And the message has always been the same that you're giving today.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you that are giving a very similar message or a different message, but a very empowering message over there down at the end and all over here, why do you continue to carry the message? Because your message is so strong. I mean, I could feel the energy coming from you.
Well, I think my message is what he said, and I love what he said, but it's kind of like it's got to be a 360. And I know my generation won't listen to anybody. They don't listen to me. So, but we've got to listen to each other. But just in my lifetime, there was a group that came out of school late 60s, a little bit before me. So they passed it down. We watched them, get beat up in whatever, in whatever. And then there was another group that they came out like mid 70s. And I listened to that. That was the group that I listened to. And I came out of high school college 84. And then we the ones behind us. I think the frustration and the disconnect is when you said we want to go through it. And it pains us to have some of the tools that you need. And I'm gonna use my sandwich, and you hand my sandwich back again. Like, I really, really, really want to give you the tools that you need, and not. We want to give you. There's a song, Regina Bell. If I could, I'd protect you from
the sadness.
And we want to do that. And then my generation is the so-called hard generation. They're the most sensitive people on the planet. So when you say, I don't want what you got me. I want to go through it. They just say, well, screw it. I'm gonna sit on the couch and drink a beer.
And as a millennial,
and a lot of times, I think you kind of miss out because they're dying with they are literally dying with knowledge.
Understood.
And let me say this. Let me chime in before you go there. But you know what? I've heard other millennials say, we want to hear you, and we do care, which is diverse from what you're saying. But we don't want you to do it for us. We want to do it for ourselves. And I think, and I may be wrong, I think that's more of what you were saying.
I'm directly speaking. That's a whole nother group of people. That's why I say they don't listen to me. There's a group of people that will go. My business partner had a program, and much like Sean knows, he's given up on the program. It was a mentor program. It was a football program. He's an ex-professional football player. Spent all his time, his money, and he just finally said this year, "I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm giving my money, my time. I'm traveling the world. I'm paying out of my pocket, whatever, and it's just constant. We don't want that."
I think that,
and I understand there's two sides. But how he feels is I'm giving you tools, and you're handing them back.
But what I was saying was, not every millennial feels the same way. Every millennial is the same.
It's not
So what do we do? So what do we do?
Like my man said, we got to keep.
How do we help you?
We got to do this.
Let Sean talk first.
I think that part of what it is that it's not that millennials don't want help or that they don't want. I mean, if there's a better way to do it, let me know. But the thing is that let's just be real transparent about what we have seen from the generations prior. We're seeing better ways to do things. For example, I'm gonna break my neck to I can get a $100,000 car and be in debt, or I can ride an Uber, right? I can get this house and I can have this mortgage, which real estate is extremely important, and it is. But I can do that, or I can travel all around the world and live in Airbnbs and enjoy myself. I can work this 50, 60 hours a week that you say that I should do and have this job, or I can gig it the whole day and time and be like, I'm going to Uber over here, I'm going to Lyft over here, I'm going to Uber Eats over here, and then I'm going to spend time enjoying life with my friends, which is ultimately what y'all said y'all wanted to do. I'm just doing it at a younger age. And so it's an issue because now it's like I'm lazy, but I'm not lazy. I'm just doing it better. And so the thing that happens is that, you know, it's like, okay, I'm supposed to, why the hell you want me to use a typewriter when I can use my computer on my phone? It's like you want me to use an archaic method of doing something when there's a new way to do it. And instead of respecting the fact that I'm using my mind to do it, you want to be like, y'all lazy, y'all ain't doing it the way we used to do it. Listen, every generation was like that. If it wasn't for young millennials, right, the baby boomers now are the millennials of the civil rights era. So we are you still. You were the Black Panthers. I mean, there were black people that hated the Black Panthers. They hated the fact that they were, but schools wouldn't have breakfast programs if it wasn't for the Panther Party. That's who created it. It came from black people, young black people like us that was like, you know what, there's kids in the hood that's not eating breakfast. So what we going to do? We're going to start feeding them breakfast in the morning. How do I know? My mother was one of them. And so it's like, so now there's breakfast programs all over the country. We're seeing a way to do it better, just like y'all saw a way to do it better back when there were people that were older. Like, no, we're not bowing down. We hate racism. We hate bigotry. We hate the fact that we hate hate.
Quick statement.
Yes.
So what we're saying in the elder generation is, like he continues to say, you don't have to start from zero.
We're not.
We because I'm Gen X.
I got you.
My generation was the hip hop generation.
Got you.
Creating the fastest growing culture in the world.
Right.
Speaking our truth.
Right.
But it comes from those baby boomer parents who taught us certain things.
Right.
And taught us not to put up with certain things.
But I think that I think that the issue is that a lot of times the older generation looks at a certain small group of people in a millennial circle and then like cast us all the same way. And that's not the case at all. Yeah, there's some thugs and some hoodlums out there. We ain't denying that, but we not all like that. You got some innovators. You know, you got people that's moving and shaking around this country, young blacks that are like making things happen, and we're figuring out ways to do it better. And our thing is that, okay, if you want to be able to like help us make it better, we're all for that. But the thing you got to understand is that this is not your time. It's our time. It's our generation, and we're going to create it and allow us to do that to be competitive with the rest of the world.
Last statement.
Last statement?
Yes, sir.
So basically, we'll touch on the sandwich thing and then starting from zero. And also what Sean said about we're basically out of 10, let's say like 9 out of 10 are not the way that certain baby boomers think that we are, right? Mm-hmm. Your sandwich idea, I get it. But we don't want the whole sandwich built for us. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Like, why don't you just take the sandwich, lay out all the ingredients.
You read my sandwich wrong. You're wrong, but I agree with what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying.
I like take that and do it that way. We're not asking to start from zero either, because nobody really starts from zero. We do need the help. But there is a way to articulate it. There is a way to communicate about it. We are a generation that needs communication, period. Mm-hmm. And we need communication in our own way. Everybody has a different way of communicating.
And with that, I'm about to end it. So
we got to do this again.
Yeah, we're going to do this
because we got to get back to that articulation thing.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody. You all have exceeded my expectation of what it was supposed to be. We probably could have kept on talking, but what we're going to do is I hope I could get you guys to commit, come back and do it again. Definitely. So we could continue with this conversation because it's very much needed. And I think if we have this conversation, I could see even us, the baby boomer and Gen X, we having some aha moments because we listen to what you guys are saying, and hopefully you guys are hearing what we say and to learn to have that proper communication. So my whole intentions with the whole Men Roundtable is to create a dialogue amongst us because you know, if we're the kings that we're supposed to be, you know, we gotta be able to connect with each other and not look at each other as adversaries.
Bruce got to bring some sandwiches though, because we're hungry. We all hungry. We do like to eat. Bruce got to bring some sandwiches.
I bring a lot of sandwiches,
But also,
all different kinds.
I pride myself in trying to surround myself with excellent black men who are doing great things. So I also want to use this as an opportunity for you all to connect and probably work with each other. Like you with your youth program, you got people teaching how to sew. You got 3 chefs right here who teach them how to cook.
Yeah.
I can sew too.
Can you? Oh, for sure.
And we got this man right here who's doing great things, and they know how to. So he might want to maybe use some of us to help him with what he's doing. So you know, part of that is to not only to have this communication, but let's use our talents together to be part of the problem, part of the solution of what we're trying to do.
Let's do it.
So what I'll do is me and Lotus will figure out another date, hopefully for the beginning of the year, and have y'all come back and we'll have part 2 of this conversation because it's very much needed. You know, we got a lot of great feedback, and y'all was just amazing. So I do appreciate y'all, first of all.
I just want to thank everybody, our viewers all over the country. We just really appreciate you. Those who are chiming in from abroad, we really appreciate you. And to everyone that came tonight, we really appreciate you and thank you for coming and expressing your views, because there is a conversation still to be had after this one, because you all are making us do some critical thinking. And it's not to say that anyone's wrong or this one's wrong or that one's right, but this is a topic that we have to harness in order for us to grow and be better tomorrow than we are today.
But see, this is the conversations I have with these 2 guys on
a regular basis,
on a monthly basis, and I just wanted to bring that conversation. Or I have it with this brother right here. You know, when we get together, I have it with him, but I just feel like we need to have it more together on a monthly basis. So instead of having just doing it and doing something the world to see how we think, how we move, how we shape. So that's how we're gonna do it.
That's right. All right.
I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
All right, with that being said, it's been the Lotus Architect Show with Lotus Riche. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you guys. Until next week, be blessed, be authentic, be you, and we are out. Peace.